Hi, I'm Sostine. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you not as a historical customer, but as another concerned individual with a background in some healthcare and some science. So that being said, I should really get into the disclosures. I have an MD. I do not have a PhD. I did some research in the past. I am not supported by any medical company other than my hospital. I am an ambassador for Baby Lock, and I am also a mood social network blogger. I don't think those two will have anything to do with this video, but I'm disclosing them because I do have an affiliation with them. And that being said, let's get started. Okay, so I get asked a lot about mask making, both as a physician and as someone who sews. So I did a lot of research into this, and I'm not an expert in this by any means, but I would like to answer some questions that I get asked frequently. One, are cloth masks helpful and are they harmful? First, yes, they are helpful, and no, for the most part, they are not harmful. I have seen studies that show that a cloth mask is better than no mask. So I would like to put that out there. And no, they are not harmful. I think there's one study that's going around that people are quoting saying that cloth masks are bad. If you read the original paper, I'm not saying the abstract, just like read the whole paper, you will see that what they're saying is cloth masks should not be used if surgical masks are available. And I think that's kind of like common sense. Like if an official hospital surgical mask is available, that is better than a cloth mask. And certainly there are many studies that confirm that. And then thirdly, surgical masks are good, but they're not as good as respirators. So respirators like N95s, number one. Two, if you don't have that, surgical mask. And if you don't have that, then use homemade cloth masks. So that's the scale. So I have a lot of papers for all of that below, so you can look at the Google Docs and kind of skim through it before you send me hate mail, please. So that being said, yes, cloth masks and homemade masks are good. So then people ask me, is there a best pattern, and what are the materials that make it the best that I should use with that best pattern? So that's a much more complicated story, so we'll get into that as well, and I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. And then the third one is, how do you know that they're working? And I'll also answer that, and I'm afraid that I can't give you like the perfect answer for all of these. There's no like this, and this, and if I could, this video would just be over now. So let's get started with talking about the materials. So University of Florida came out and they released two different patterns along with suggestions for using Halyard H600, which is a medical cloth, which I think is actually ingenious. Halyard H600 is actually a sterilization material that hospitals use to clean their surgical instruments after use. And so hospitals have it in abundance, and moreover, it's relatively affordable, and it does filter out bacteria. Like, it's literally designed to filter stuff out, because after you clean an instrument, you wrap it up in this material, you put it through the autoclaves, and an autoclave is a machine that basically steams and heats and pressurizes to kill off any bacteria and viruses. So then it comes out, and it sits in this blue material for, I don't know, like a week or two until the hospital's ready to use it again. And then so during that time, bacteria shouldn't be able to get through it. And that's the whole point. So it's been studied quite a bit. Hospitals use it, and the way that you study it is you look at its bacterial filtration efficiency, or BFE. And the bacterial filtration efficiency for Halyard H600 is greater than 99.9, which is the best possible score. And what that means is particles about 3 microns in size do not go through. And the way that they figure it out is actually really funny. They get a piece of the filter of the paper, and then they chuck bacteria at it, and then they measure how many bacteria are on the other side. So it's pretty cool. It's been well studied. The problem is BFE doesn't really tell you much about how it does against something like COVID, which is a virus. And the way that you measure whether or not virus is getting through is you measure something called a PFE, or particle filtration efficiency. And that's because, as I said, a BFE measures things about 3 microns. Particle filtration efficiency measures things that are 0.1 to 1 micron. Now, to put this into perspective, coronavirus has been measured to be somewhere between 50 nanometers and 200 nanometers. That means that the smaller COVID coronaviruses are about 0.05 microns, and the larger ones are 0.2 microns. So while not perfect, PFE should be very good at figuring out if coronavirus is making it through. A mask like an N95 has absolutely had the PFE studied. The Halyard H600 has not had the PFE studied, to the best of my knowledge. If you have that number or that study somewhere, please send it to me. I have been looking all over for it and I just don't see it. And basically, BFE is not really the equal to PFE because, again, one studies whether particles much bigger can get through. And that's not to say that Halyard H600 definitely doesn't have a PFE of greater than 99% or something. It means it's literally not been studied. So I think that it has a lot of potential, and it definitely is probably the best material we've got that's readily available in a hospital that we can use for making all these masks. So fantastic. The price is relatively good. It's about $2 to $3 a yard, according to the links that I've looked at. And that's, again, if you're buying it not wholesale. I'm sure hospitals can get it much cheaper, but I'm looking at if you as a lay individual wanted to buy it, you could get it for probably $2 to $3 a yard. You'd have to buy about 24 sheets at once. But again, you'd still at least have it. It's reasonably priced, it's readily available, it does filter out bacteria, it probably also filters out viruses, but we don't know how well. And it's autoclavable, meaning that you can sterilize it. So that means that these masks that you make are reusable. You can literally wear them, put them into a hospital autoclave, and healthcare professionals can wear them again. So that's pretty nice. So those are all the great things. So if I had to pick best materials, that would probably be it. Now, if you look at the Halyard website, they sell multiple types. There's H100, H200, and you go all the way down to H600, and they also sell other wraps. If you look at the BFE of all of them, they're all about 99.8 to 99.9 or greater. So they all probably work the same way. I think the H600 is probably the thickest, so it probably has the best chance of filtering out the most viruses, but again, the PFE is not known, but it does have some filtrative ability for sure. So, okay, so that's the best material that I can probably recommend. As I said, there are some websites where you can get it, and two, if you don't want to buy it and possibly take away from healthcare professionals, which I totally understand and kind of thank you for in some ways, you can also maybe talk to your local hospital. They may be giving it out so that you can sew it up and bring it back to them, because a lot of places are concerned about where they're going to get their respirators. Okay, so that's the materials question. Next is the question of pattern. Which one is the best pattern? And again, the best pattern ideally is a mask that does not let any air seep in through the sides, top or bottom. And the reason for that is because if it lets anything leak from the sides, no matter how well it filters from the front, you're still going to get leakage from other ends, so virus can still get through. So something like an N95 respirator does not let any air through the sides. And the way that you test it and make sure that it doesn't is you do a fit test. And anyone who has an N95 knows that they have to go through the fit test to make sure that it works. And the way that you do the fit test is that you put the mask on, and then you put this giant hood hat on, and then a fit tester, who is usually someone who has been taught to do this properly, sprays a solution that has a certain flavor that's very distinct. It's either really sweet or really bitter, or etc. And then this particle won't go through the mask, but it can go through the sides. And then you do different activities while wearing the mask and the hood and having this repeatedly sprayed into your face until you say, oh wow, I taste it, there's a hole, or you say, oh, I actually never tasted that, that works. So, and it's pretty rigorous. It's 7 minutes of you doing activities like sitting down and breathing, deep breathing, and walking and talking and shaking your head and nodding and all that sort of things. So it's 7 minutes. And again, that makes sense. You're probably going to be wearing this mask way longer than 7 minutes. So a 7-minute test is very reasonable. So we did a fit test on several different patterns. And by we, I mean me and some really awesome people at the hospital that I work at. So we did some testing, and we actually do have a pattern that works, but I'll get to that. So basically, we want a pattern that is relatively easy to make, passes the fit test, and that probably is the best pattern. So University of Florida was kind enough to share 2 patterns for free on their website, and so we tested those 2. The first one is this one. The second one is this one. There was one that I wanted to test because if you've ever used an N95, it kind of looks like a duckbill. It's like, we call it the duckbill one. And it's based on the Halyard pattern. So I made one. Well, I made like 5 of these, but this is one of them. This is the small one. I made them in 2 sizes, a small and a medium. And then the last one I wanted to try out was this mask, which I see a lot online. It's on Instructables, and I just thought it looked like a really great mask. My mother-in-law, Kim, she really loves it, and I can see why. So we made this as well. And by we, I just want to say thank you. One of my friends at work, Andrea, her mom is an incredible seamstress. Like, she makes wedding gowns, and she sewed this for us to test, and she sewed like them overnight, which is, oh my God, thank you so, so much. Tested all 4 of those designs out. So first, the first mask that we tried was this. It's the Florida Mask, prototype number 1. According to their website, it passed their fit test. There's a wire on top. It's a 16 gauge wire. I want to say, as someone who's made this a lot of times, the wire is absolutely essential. Look how there's no gap there. It's really comfortable. And we tried it on 4 different people. There's 3 in the video. We tried it on 4 people, and it failed. Okay, it failed.
Okay, I'm gonna hit start. This is just normal breathing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But we even put tape on the sides because we definitely felt some gaping at the sides. So we put some tape on the sides, and it still failed. So, but at the same time, really great pattern. The next one we tried was this one. This is the Florida Mask, prototype number 2. And this one also has a wire on top, ties at the bottom like this. Okay, so the second mask actually passed, and it passed for all 3 of us. So we had 3 people test this. We had Kathy, who normally wears a medium duckbill mask, and we had Megan, who normally wears a small duckbill mask, and we had me, who does not fit into either of the duckbill masks. And we did those, all 3 of us. I know the limitation is that we didn't have any men, but none of the men were available in the ORs to come out and do fit testing for 45 minutes, so sorry. But and we all have small chins, so I think that maybe if you have a larger chin, you may have different things. So the interesting thing about it is that I really, the first time we tried it with the mask, it did not pass. So we put a little bit of tape. We felt like it had a really great fit when we put it, but for me, I felt like there was a hole in the bottom. So I put a little bit of tape. I used 2-inch plastic tape from the operating rooms, and I put it right there. And that did it for me. After that, I passed. Kathy also felt the same thing, and she also has a very small chin like me. Later on, so we put tape on it, and then we passed the fit test. For Megan, who has a sharper nose, she felt a little bit of a leak here, so she put it down, but she also noticed some gaping here. So we just put a little bit on top there, and suddenly she was able to pass as well. So 3 out of 3 people passed. We did pass with the asterisk of it did need a little bit of help from tape, but you know, to me, if you have no N95s and this is what you have, this might actually work really well. So that's just something to put out there. I think this passes, you?
Yes, I do too.
Okay. The end. So that's pretty awesome. So then we tried the Duckbill Mask. And again, I'm going to put this one on me. Okay, so this is the Duckbill Mask, and It actually feels really good along the bottom there. There's no real gaping holes. And then the top there, you know, it fits really well. And it failed. It didn't fail, it wasn't like a hard fail, like sometimes when you put on a mask and you get in the hood, like they spray once and you're like, oh crap, I taste that completely, and you know it failed immediately. It wasn't like that, like it failed halfway through. I think that there is a way that maybe if I felt like it, I could modify the pattern. Like this is one I drafted myself, that it may pass in the future, but when something else already passed, we were just like, well, you know, this one failed after a while, that one passed, like let's just go with the one that passes. And we did have to also tape this one and it still failed, so that really tells you that just putting tape on it doesn't make a mask pass. So that was the third one. Now then we tried this one, and I mean, again, beautifully sewn, and I really love the way that it fits, so I'll show you how it fits. Now, I've also put the link for all this mask below. It's from Instructables. And actually, it's so comfortable. Of all the masks, this is definitely by far the most comfortable. And it failed. It failed with tape on the top and sides and everything. And it's a pity because we really like this mask. So it can't work as a respirator. Can it work as a really great mask? Yes, absolutely. The moral of the story is that we do have one design that passed, but again, with the giant asterisk of it still required a little bit of finagling, and we highly recommend that you go ahead and get a fit test to see what you have to do to make it pass for you. What we need to make this. So it uses several materials. People ask me about thread. The thread that I would recommend for this is probably a cotton. I wouldn't recommend you know, acrylic thread or anything like that, because acrylic has a melting point of 160 degrees Celsius. And autoclave, if you want to be able to reuse this mask and sterilize it in the hospital setting, an autoclave gets up to 240 degrees Celsius regularly. And I would recommend cotton cording. Then for the wire, I really recommend a nice strong 16 gauge wire, and I've linked that below as well. So now that we know which pattern passed, let's talk about how to make this pattern. I want to emphasize that this is free, and this is awesome of the University of Florida to post it for everyone to take and use, and it's really generous of them. They do have a donation site on their website if you want to give to them, because they have been so generous already, and they're the ones who came up with the use of Halyard, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Let's actually make this thing. Let's talk about the materials we need. This is a little portion of Halyard H600. In actuality, it comes in these giant, like 36 by 36, 54 by 54 sheets, and it's made up of two parts, a blue part and a white part that's kind of put together at the ends there. And then you need 16 gauge wire, needle nose pliers, a clamp to kind of flatten it out, some sort of cotton string. I'm using 1/8 inch twill tape that's made out of cotton, some paper scissors or regular scissors, a pen, some clips, a ruler, and a rotary cutter. And of course, here I have my pattern. So let's start by cutting out the mask pattern. Dashes where the straps are going to go. We don't actually cut this portion out, since these dashes didn't actually make it onto the inside once I cut it. Let me do that. Will not. You can actually cut out the these darts. I personally prefer to sew them and then cut them, but it's all up to you. Then let's get the wire. What you want to do is make a 4.5 inch little wire thing that has the edges where the edges have been flattened. So to do so, I cut a 5-inch piece of wire. Whoops, I nearly forgot this. You actually need wire cutters as well. So again, let's go back here. I measure out 5 inches. Okay. And then you want to sort of curve in the edges, and you want it to curve the same way. So now we have this. Now let's cut the straps. Please note I've folded the halyard in half, and I'm going to put it down here, and I want to cut it into a 1-inch strip, and I want 2 of them. You want to make 4 strips that are
about 24 inches. These are 22. This is long enough because the original one is 45 inches. And so if you tear these apart, now you have 2 that are 45, or once we cut them, it's going to be 4 that are 22.5. So I'm happy with that. And we are going to also cut some cording. Now let's get started on sewing this. Okay, so now that this is sewn, I just clip off the cotton ends there. And then I will be cutting each of these in half. Okay, so the next thing that needs to be sewn are these dots as well as these things in. So you can see these black markings that I've made, and between each marking I put my thing in about 3/4 of an inch, half an inch. Then I'm going to kind of clip these because I will be sewing this start in with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I want to say, if you have a smaller chin like me, you might want to make the darts a little bit bigger. You don't have to, because as I said, I used tape for my fit testing and that made it pass. Okay, so let's zigzag stitch these and then do some dart stitching there. I use a 7mm wide zigzag stitch that is 2 millimeters long. Now here's the cool part. We're going to open this flap up here and then put in the wire. And then the wire will actually sit up here, and then we're going to do another stitch here to keep that wire where it is. And you can see the wire right there. And we're going to bend the mask just a little so that we can pin this part together. And by pin, I mean clip. And then we're going to sew from here to here. And that's it. Our mask is done. This one's a fast one.
So again, to summarize, 1, are masks helpful? Yes, yes they are. 2, is there a best materials? Yes, I don't know if you can get your hands on it, but it's called Halyard H600, and it may not be proven against viruses so far as I know, but we know that it has filtrative capacity, and we know that it's waterproof, and we know that it's readily available and affordable, and we also know that it's better than fabric. Like, this is still better than any fabric you can probably get your hands on. So there's that. And is there a best pattern? I don't know for sure. There is one pattern that passed the fit test as far as I could try it. I would love to hear if you guys try it and if it passes for you, and see how well it passes for you and any advice you have there. And so I've linked all the information below, and please let me know if you have any questions. And remember, before you use any of these, please fit test. And I think fit testing is incredibly important for everyone who's wearing these respirators as respirators. Thank you for watching, guys. Yeah, stay healthy.
Gideon, can I have my chair back?
Science!